U.S. Senator Russ Feingold, and I think Dennis Kucinich, the one Democrat in the House. Other than that, universally, including the likes of people Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, all supported that aspect of it. But yeah, there would be divisions in terms of how to approach things. But there were some bipartisan agreements, and one was that we have to stop. Step one, allowing people to overstay their visas. Some of you are not young or not old enough, or some of you may not even have been alive when 9/11 occurred. But I know some of you were. And I suspect at the time, given that both Democrats and Republicans agreed on at least that first step principle of enforcing visas and when people overstay, making sure that they are not here any longer. Do you not remember that? Do you not remember that, at how you thought and your party thought that was a no-brainer? How do you resolve that with the fact that now the party not only, again, has completely done an about-face on that, but blocks the attempt to enforce those visa laws? And there are some sitting elected Democrats that after the 9/11 Commission and the findings and the recommendations that ran around talking about how we got to make sure that we enforce the, and now those same exact people are pitching a fit whenever there is an attempt to do exactly what it is that we all said we were going to do. I mean, it is an amazing thing to watch play out. Trump has also, I'm going to play some audio. He announces a travel ban from 12 countries. This is something that, well, this was in his first administration, a move that really began the hysteria. You may have recalled people falsely labeled it a ban on all Muslims, which is an insanely ridiculous assertion, but nonetheless, there were protests at airports, and left-wingers were out there just going hysterical. It's going to be interesting. I mean, I guess they'll protest this as well. This is apparently something that Trump had already been considering doing, but given the recent terrorist attack, has decided to go ahead and expedite it, I suppose. How far up the calendar this got moved, I don't know, but this was something that was apparently in the works. And I suspect it's something that we're going to see the people on the left just pitch a fit over. I mean, have you ever seen a country with a major political party roll out a welcome mat for terrorists like this? It's just the most unimaginable thing one could even conceive of. Have you ever, with greater clarity, seen the definition of providing aid and comfort to when it comes to terrorist organizations like Trans de Aragua? I think that we should really take a moment and recognize aid and comfort. You have U.S. senators fly to the home country of some of these terrorists. Trans de Aragua is a terrorist organization. In order to meet with them, to make sure they know I'm working on your behalf, if that isn't aid and comfort, I don't know what is. We got weather coming up in a moment. The Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447 KSGF. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see areas of fog before 9 a.m., otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 78. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 66. For your Friday, showers and thunderstorms throughout the day with a high near 78. And looking ahead to Saturday, scattered showers throughout the day with a high near 80.
Joe Biden has weighed in on the auto pen scandal. He keeps popping up, much to the dismay, disappointment, chagrin of Democrats. And the word is, and this is something I predicted, is people like, why does he keep showing it? Why is he doing this? Democrats, there are no Democrats that are like, hey, Joe, we really need you to get out there. This is not good for them. And word is that they're broke. They're broke. They aren't good with money. Part of the reason that they grabbed as much money hand over fist as possible, that's why Hunter Biden was out there, flying all over, particularly when a lot of, those connections came up when Joe Biden was vice president, and the belief at the time was that that was going to be the end of his selling of influence. And so had to get the big time money flowing in, and so that's when Hunter got the Burisma gig, and Hunter would travel on Air Force Two with Joe Biden to all these countries, and then like within days afterwards, would all of a sudden have some sort of amazing contract to represent in some capacity a major company from that very country. Just it's sheer coincidence, of course, and then of course the LLCs that were set up, funneling money to bank accounts to all the family members. Well, that money's, and these aren't fiscally intelligent people, apparently. These aren't individuals that were wise with money, that thought, hey, this spigot at some point is going to dry up, and so we probably should put a little squirrel sum away, maybe do some investing. According to a number of sources, that's not who these people. They're very bad with money. I mean, look, Hunter Biden. What was it in his IRS documents? Like 6 figures a year on drugs and human trafficking, hookers from other countries and stuff. I mean, And so Joe Biden is out there trying to stay relevant, or he's being pushed out there by Jill so that perhaps he can, if he's relevant still, he can get speaking gigs, and maybe demonstrate that he is of value to someone so that he could get money. Or heck, maybe they're thinking if he stays out there enough, people will start paying him to go away, to stop being out there. Maybe that's the position that's being taken. The auto pen. As you know, the Justice Department has been ordered to look into and investigate this auto pen situation, as it's been noted that there were times Joe Biden was not even in Washington when some of these, whether they're executive orders or pardons, were even signed. So he wasn't even there. He wasn't present. Some of these times were times they were claiming that he was there and that he actually signed these things. So it turns out that it's actual auto pen. And I think we all know. You combine that with the fact that there were instances, and Speaker Mike Johnson spoke of one of these instances, in which one of the executive orders that Joe Biden signed, which cut off our energy sales to Europe, which in turn forced them to buy from Russia, which of course allowed Russia to fund their war against Ukraine. And Joe Biden just flat out denied that he ever signed it. And Mike Johnson Mike Johnson's perspective was that he didn't remember it. But Mike Johnson's revelation of that was before we understood about this auto pen situation. So this is what we're looking at as a country. But this is also going to be the great defense. And frankly, it's potentially a legitimate one. If you're going to investigate this, the central figure and provider of information would be Joe Biden, right? Because it is his signature, or so we're told. So centrally, an investigation is going to require, did you sign this? And then if he says he did, perhaps coming at him in a more aggressive manner in order to try to, poke holes if there are holes there to be poked. So, but you were out of the country. Or, hey, you said that you would never give a pardon to a violent offender, yet here are pardons to violent offenders that were done with the auto pen. What was this contradiction? And this is a guy that Republicans and the Trump administration itself has noted, accurately so, can't remember a ham sandwich from an ice cream cone. So how is it that you investigate a situation in which you must derive information from an individual that everyone knows, and you yourself has argued, doesn't have the cognitive ability to, answer or remember that far back, or even, remember somebody's name, or that you've known them your whole life. The folks that arguably, let's say this administration has evidence that, okay, this guy over here and this gal over here and this person over here, they were utilizing the auto pen, and we have evidence, or we believe that they were doing it without Joe Biden's knowledge. Now, how do you prove that? I mean, unless there are emails that are going around saying, I'm going to use the auto pen. Joe doesn't know. I don't think, as brazenly unethical and immoral as these people are, that they would do that. I suspect that much of the auto pen was done for individual self-serving purposes, individuals that were doing favors in order to, down the road, get a job, get some sort of kickback. Oh, I can have this EO signed for you, or yes, I can get your family member pardoned. Just, don't worry about it. I have influence with Biden. I've got the president's ear. I'll make sure that he takes care of this. I mean, they're obviously not going to tell the person, oh, I'm going to do it by using the auto pen. They would say, well, I have the president's ear. He trusts me. I advise him, and I will push him on this. So if you're investigating this, you have those people. What's your defense? If it's you, what's your defense going to be? I mean, what do you, so the president doesn't remember? I mean, what are you going to press me with? What are you going to say? Well, we interviewed the president. He doesn't remember signing this. Okay. Well, according to you, he doesn't remember anything. Everyone knows he doesn't remember everything. So they have this perfect defense built in. And I thought this from the beginning, even when it comes to arguing the legalities and whether some of these, be they executive orders or pardons, could be overturned, I suspect that one would need to, I mean, unless you manage to, through the courts, get opinions saying that, the auto pin can't be used at all, no matter who's using it. Even if it's the president using it, cannot be used in that capacity. But if the attempt to overturn any of the auto pin signatures is due to the fact that, Biden actually did not utilize the auto pin, I've always thought from the beginning, how are you going to prove that? The only person that could potentially provide you that information would be Biden himself, and we certainly can't use him as a source. So Biden, however, has said it's all foolishness, that he signed every one of them, or he gave that the signing was the result of his decision on every one of the issues. Springfield's Talk 1041 coming up. New travel ban, 12 countries. President Trump making a statement on that yesterday. I'm Nick Reed. Streaming live, KSGF.com. This is a statement on Truth Social regarding a new travel ban. This is the President of the United States.
The recent terror attack in Boulder, Colorado, has underscored the extreme dangers posed to our country by the entry of foreign nationals who are not properly vetted, as well as those who come here as temporary visitors and overstay their visas. We don't want them. In the 21st century, we've seen one terror attack after another carried out by foreign visa overstayers from dangerous places all over the world. And thanks to Biden's open door policies, today there are millions and millions of these illegals who should not be in our country. In my first term, my powerful travel restrictions were one of our most successful policies, and they were a key part of preventing major foreign terror attacks on American soil. We will not let what happened in Europe happen to America. That's why on my first day back in office, I directed the Secretary of State to perform a security review of high-risk regions and make recommendations for where restrictions should be imposed. Among the national security threats their analysis considered are the large-scale presence of terrorists, failure to cooperate on visa security, inability to verify travelers' identities, inadequate record-keeping of criminal histories, and persistently high rates of illegal visa overstays, and other things. Very simply, we cannot have open migration from any country where we cannot safely and reliably vet and screen those who seek to enter the United States. That is why today I am signing a new executive order placing travel restrictions on countries including Yemen, Somalia, Haiti, Libya, and numerous others. The strength of the restrictions we're applying depends on the severity of the threat posed. The list is subject to revision based on whether material improvements are made, and likewise new countries can be added as threats emerge around the world. But we will not allow people to enter our country who wish to do us harm, and nothing will stop us from keeping America safe. Thank you very much.
So I imagine by the end of the day, there will be a Democrat activist judge that says you can't do that, and any terrorist from any country that has no vetting whatsoever is more than welcome to come to the United States. Have you noticed that this isn't about specifically, oh, these are just countries that are hotbeds for terrorism. This is about, and this is the same rationale for this, what was a temporary ban during the first term. These are countries that have said, hey, we don't have the ability, there's no way to verify these people that are coming from our country. Like you and I go to, people come from a number of other countries and there's a passport, and the passport is based off certain information, or you can do background checks. Well, because we're accustomed to the way that we live, we don't oftentimes recognize, or a lot of people don't, that in some countries it's filled with people that they don't even know when they were born. There are no birth certificates. There are no It's not like here in the United States, which has essentially become a surveillance state, in which virtually anything and everything you ever do, while the government may claim that they don't gather that information, they do. There are countries that have none of that whatsoever. And so there's absolutely no way that you can properly vet individuals to see whether or not it is somebody that is out there every day openly planning to carry out a terrorist plot against the United States of America, or if it's just somebody that wants to come here and hang out and means no harm. There's no way to tell. And if the argument is going to be that we should not ban people from coming to the United States just because we can't tell whether they're a terrorist or not, then there's no point in having any vetting for anyone. None. It becomes a moot point. And as insane as that may sound, I suspect that is going to be the position that Democrats take. Traffic update, I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see areas of fog before 9 a.m., otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 78. Tonight mostly cloudy with a low around 66. For your Friday, showers and thunderstorms throughout the day with a high near 78. And looking ahead to Saturday, scattered showers throughout the day with a high near 80.
Ozarks elder law, the days are over where you could just scratch out a will and put a signature to it and even have a witness sign it, and then that's going to do it. Government's not going to be sniffing around deciding that they should have control of who gets what in your family. Sadly, that is not how it works. Missouri statutes will not honor that piece of paper as a valid will, and the government will decide where your stuff goes. I mean, even with public administrator, some of you have been through this, it take years. Even little things. You think, well, I can go over to Dad's house and, I can at least grab the family portrait that we had done. Yeah, you would think so. But that's not the way that it works, unfortunately. And fortunately, there's Lori Rook. They're the good folks at Ozarks Elder Law, Ladies in White as they're known, that can help make sure that you don't find yourself in that position, or worse yet, when you pass on, your those that you leave behind don't find themselves in that position. And maybe it's something that, your parents or grandparents hadn't thought of, or they just don't understand to what extent one needs to go in order to protect themselves today from government. And you need to let them know, hey, listen, this is what we're going to be dealing with. I know it's never fun. And this isn't about, we want to make sure we get all of your stuff, but we just don't want to be tied up in some sort of, government entanglement for years just to divvy up what stuff it is that you have left behind. Ozarks Elder Law, free consultation. They'll let you know ahead of time, here's what it will cost in order to get you all set up. It's not billable hours stuff. You know ahead of time what that cost will be. And again, the consultation is a courtesy. OzarksElderLaw.com, also KSGF.com, Nick's endorsements. There is this mindset a lot of people have. Whenever it gets announced that, for example, the president, like, okay, we got 12 new countries here, in which there is no way to verify if people coming from those countries plan to do us harm or not, and so, because we cannot verify that, there is going to be a ban on travel of people from those countries until we can figure out some sort of system of verification. Now, some people's response to that will be, and this sometimes is genuine, sometimes it's Trump derangement syndrome. Well, that's unfair. That's unfair to block the good people from Somalia simply because there may be some people from Somalia that are going to carry out terrorist attacks against the United States. And I know to a lot of people that seems insane. Like, well, 9/11, well, but, it would have been wrong to block people from coming from that country, so you got to weigh it. I know, but there are people that they have that mindset. You should not stop all people from that country just because you can't verify them. Now ask yourself this. Let's say that you get a text message from your child's school, and the text message is letting you know as a parent that the school is in lockdown mode because there is an active shooter situation, or there was, within the school area, and law enforcement is on the look for, they're out looking for that person, but they have not found that person. Then, however, you find out after the fact that they actually didn't lock the school down, because someone in the front office decided, well, that's not really fair, because clearly the vast majority of people who are wanting to come into the school mean no harm. In fact, some of them just want to see their kids. And so they decided, well, we'll just let anybody in, even though we can't verify clearly whether the person that is out there as a shooter is one of these individuals that we're letting in. Now, would you say, well, that's fair? Because that would be wrong, after all, to block the vast majority of people who mean no harm from coming into the school just because one person may potentially come in and shoot up the school. Is that the position you take? I don't think it is. You'd be furious. You'd probably sue the school. You'd demand that that person got fired. Yet that's the same position some people, including lawmakers, take when it comes to blocking people from countries that we cannot verify, countries that are at the same time hotbeds of terrorism and, got cells and training of people on how it is to carry out terrorist attacks. And when there's no way to tell the good from the bad, and we say, okay, we got to shut the doors from those people until we're able to figure out how we can verify these folks, there are people that will say you can't do that. And there will be people, and I think we know which political persuasion they'll be, that will say just that of this travel ban. And there will probably be a Democrat activist judge that says, no, you can't do that. Open the floodgates, let them keep coming in, with no verification ability whatsoever. There are people in this country in positions of authority that have put us as a country on a suicide mission. And I think it's important to understand that while, for example, the latest terrorist attack, when this administration notes that this is why it is so important to alter the policies and the approach from the previous administration, and I think even a lot of Trump supporters feel like, well, it's a little uncouth. I mean, this is a bad thing. It's a terrorist attack. It's not really the time to point fingers. It is the time to point fingers when it comes to the approach so that we understand how it is that we stop these things from happening. It's not the time for blame game just for the sake of it, but people need to understand the repercussions. That's part of how it is as a individual person, as an organization, as a culture, as a society, that you improve your quality of life. You learn from your mistakes. If you do not learn from your mistakes, if you do not learn from history, then you will repeat it. This is a cliche that people love to mindlessly repeat over and over again. Yet so many people want to completely throw that out the window and say, well, now you shouldn't point back. We need to look forward. We shouldn't look back. There's no reason to point out that it was because of the previous administration's immigration policies that have allowed all of these people into this country. I mean, it's so uncouth and it's just wrong to use a tragedy for political purposes. No, what is wrong is putting blinders over our eyes and refusing to acknowledge what led up to this occurring. What mistakes did we make as a country, policy-wise, that created an environment that allowed these individuals to come into the country to then carry out a terrorist attack? That is what is unacceptable. And I don't care if it makes people uncomfortable. I don't care if it hurts people's feelings. I mean, can you imagine if other just disasters were dealt with that way? There's some major airplane crash. Well, now let's not look at why it happened. We don't want to point fingers. And we don't want to blame a pilot. There's no point in doing that. This is a tragedy. And we certainly don't want to take this opportunity in order to just blame people. We don't want to look into mechanical errors. We don't want to, let's not do that. It's it's just uncouth and it's very uncomfortable. No, of course we don't. In fact, we demand answers. We want to know exactly what happened. We want to know exactly how it happened. We want to know if it was human error. We want to know if it was some sort of mechanical error. If it was a mechanical error, what caused that mechanical error, and what do we do to stop it? Yet when it comes to whether it's the increase in anti-Semitism or the increased number of people that are coming or have come into this country completely unvetted, and then they pop up on university campuses calling for the death to Jews, or, and we'll get to this later, they pop up, essentially working on behalf of the communist Chinese, smuggling in deadly eco-terrorist substances. Or they go around lighting Jews on fire, but we're like, well, let's not blame, let's not point fingers, let's not spend too much time trying to figure out what caused this atmosphere that made this scenario more likely to happen. That's insane. And I know most of you get it. But when you listen to some of these generally politicians or people that have assigned themselves to one political party, and that is all that matters, whatever they say, it becomes very clear there's a significant segment of our population that, again, has us on a suicide mission. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company, more rainy days are ahead of us, and if your roof or gutters just simply can't take another storm, make sure to reach out to Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company for all of your roofing needs. Now, the Pyramid team, they offer commercial roofing, residential roofing, metal roofing services, and free roof inspections. They also sit down and work with you through that insurance process without making you sign anything. Which not all roofing companies do that, by the way, and they won't try to upsell you or use any type of scare tactic on you. They'll let you know if it is time for a whole new roof, or maybe you just need a simple roof repair. So over the next couple of days, if you notice any type of yellowing on your ceiling or leaks or drips, make sure to remember the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, you can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
We are continuing to see instances of media here in this country trying to make Americans feel sympathetic, not for the victims of terrorism, but the terrorists themselves. There is a piece in USA Today that is written in a manner that suggests we should feel sorry for the terrorists because his family might be deported over this. Now, there may be some people that say, well, now that's not fair to deport them just simply because the father is a terrorist. They are in the country illegally. Their visas have expired. Again, 9/11, we'll make sure we never let that happen again. We'll make sure that we don't allow people to overstay their visas. Is there no one that is in this country illegally that Democrats will not come to the defense to? And we don't know whether their family may have known nothing at all. Yeah, maybe. But again, I mean, if they were in this country legally, that would be one thing. But they're not even here. They're not supposed to be here anyway. I mean, we are sending this message to the world. If you're in this country illegally and you want to make sure that you get to stay here, just have a family member kill some Jews or beat your wife or join a terrorist organization. Because as soon as you do that and there's an effort to deport you, there's going to be some Democrat judge that says, no, you can't do that. There's going to be some Democrat member of Congress that tries to storm an ICE facility in order to break you free. There's going to be some Democrat U.S. senator that flies to your home country demanding to visit with you, to hear your plight. I mean, the left in this country is sending a massive bat signal to all of the people in the world that want to do harm to this country. The way to protect yourself from deportation to the greatest degree is to do something horrible in the United States, to kill someone, to try to kill someone, to human smuggle, because as soon as you do that and there's an attempt to hold you accountable, you're going to have the left line up to defend you. Then you have, over at ABC News, trying to make it seem as if Islamophobia is just as bad as anti-Semitism in this country. ABC's Bill Hutchinson with a piece that is citing an audit released from the Anti-Defamation League showing anti-Semitism incidents have, risen given the numbers. But he's like, but CARE has these numbers. Now, CARE is, according to our own government, a, quote, secret front. This is well before the Trump administration, by the way. The Council on American Islamic Relations was created in 1994, quote, as a secret front organization to support Hamas. This, according to declassified FBI wiretap transcripts and FBI testimony. Now, of course, if you ask a Democrat, they'll say that's not proof. So we should give the terrorist a benefit of the doubt. So this is essentially a marketing wing of Hamas here in the United States. And so they come up with numbers. And what does the media do? Anytime a terrorist organization or spokespeople for a terrorist organization give numbers, well, they just run with them as if they're the truth. And guess what? They say that, Muslims in the United States today have it just as bad. Really? Have we seen tens of thousands of protesters across this country on college campuses calling for the death of Muslims? Did I miss that? Did I miss the calls for the elimination of entire Muslim countries by tens of thousands of students? Did I see members of Congress standing up and saying, well, that's their right to do it? Have Muslim students been chased off of campus? Have Muslim students had to lock themselves in libraries because they're being chased down by rioters? Are Muslim students being physically attacked on college campuses? Because that's what's been happening to Jewish students. Have Muslim diplomats been targeted for assassination? Have Americans, or anyone for that matter, been targeting and lighting on fire Muslims? This is the brainwashing also that the American people have in some capacity allowed themselves. Now, that's all we all know these things are happening, right? As I just laid it out. But there are people that, here on ABC News, here's an organization that they says, oh, no, it's just the same. Muslims are going through the exact same things as Jews are right now in this country, and they're an expert, so I guess that's true. Think about it. Where is it happening? It isn't. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. regarding the Colorado terrorist attack. Mike Johnson had, I thought, a pretty on-point statement regarding the Democrats' response and attitude towards these sorts of terrorist attacks here in the United States, particularly when it comes to anti-Semitism.
According to DHS, Solomon, this criminal, this violent, sick individual that did this stuff over the weekend, applied for a tourist visa in 2022. He applied for asylum. He's been living in the U.S. on an expired visa since March of 2023. If you apply Democrat logic to this case, Solomon was one of their constituents, as they say, and under their framing, he was just a Colorado man, right? But when you see Democrats ramping up attacks on ICE agents and storming ICE detention facilities and calling for the dismantlement of ICE, just know that this is who they're defending. This is the result.
Very on point, very true words. Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor Landscape and Outdoor Living Space Design by the absolute best. These are premier folks. They do some of the most premier jobs in the area, whether it's residential or for your business as well. It is a great step up. You want to have a patio area. Maybe you're a restaurant and you want to have outdoor seating. Patios can come across as absolute dime a dozen, almost just as a utility. Here we just got to have a place for things to sit and so forth. But you can be well above that with Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. And if you go to their site, they actually have a really great site. You can see great before and after visuals. It's got a slider. I love that tool they have on their site where you can see some of their work and slide left to right to see before and after. So you can see some of the quality work that they do. HunterHardscapes.com. Also, Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. Springfield's Talk 104.1. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the show. My name is Nick Reed. Hey, Godfather's Pizza, how would you like to have an office pizza party? Oh, it could be work. I mean, you're like, I don't really have an official office. That's cool. Whatever. Just your workplace. How about a pizza party? You can register at ksgf.com. You put in some info, name, phone number, email, all that jazz. And if your name's drawn, then we'll deliver you hot and delicious Godfather's Pizza. How about that? Also at ksgf.com, while you're there anyhow, you can register to win a round of golf for Dad and 3 of his friends at one of Big Cedar golf courses. And that's what we have going on there. There's nothing else there right now, right? I mean, contest-wise.
Nope, next week we got all kinds of stuff, so stick around. Stay tuned.
Oh, very exciting. Well, early morning hours, the Missouri Senate narrowly approved sweeping incentive plans intended to keep the Kansas City Chiefs and the Royals inside the state lines, clearing the largest hurdle facing the legislation. Vote came just before 2:30 this morning. After hours of chaotic deal-making among senators, as Governor Mike Kehoe and his office tried to move the package forward amid a bevy of disagreements, the legislation now heads to the Missouri House, where lawmakers are likely to send it to Kehoe's desk. Now, I'm going to read to you from some of this story because I think what has occurred here is there appears to be a combination of things. One, a sense of inevitability, and so a number of lawmakers are like, okay, well, I want this to happen, so I'll support it if we throw this in. I think that there are some who are seeing this as potentially inevitable, and so they are saying, since this is inevitable, okay, we'll go ahead and support it, but we need this. Now, some of these things are positive. I do think that this method of getting things done for a lot of people is just icky. It's unpleasant. It is, and I'm not even, this isn't an argument whether this should or should not be done. Just the feeling that I have about this is that I hear priorities or what we're told are priorities. I mean, how many times? School choice in Missouri. I think before schools even existed in Missouri, we were like, we're going to have school choice. Kehoe, one of the things that he campaigned on was eliminating your income taxes. We have seen a number of things that we're told are priorities, and then it's like, well, what's going on with that? Well, you got to understand. Takes a long time. Got to understand. Like, all right, yeah, no, I get it. I understand. But, man, when they want something, boy, do they manage to move fast, don't they? I mean, it's like this is, let me tell you what this ultimately, aside from whether this is a wise usage of tax dollars, this shows me that when Missouri government, and in this case specifically Republicans, want something done, they get it done. When they want something done, they can make it happen, and they can make it happen fast. I mean, how long has this special session been going on here? Not that long. But when it comes to certain things that they tell us that they're so supportive of, it's like session after session, year after year after year. Well, we're going to work on it this year, and then that's going to allow us to build on it for next year. And then, well, we got to do this and that. And like I said, I understand the realities of that. But I also understand what you put right in front of us, the realities of how fast things can move if you want them done, if it is a real priority. And to me, that's what all of this screams. For better or worse, I think regardless of where you are on this particular issue, if you think that in no way, shape, or form is this the role of government, or if you think, yes, this is exactly what government should be doing, I think both sides and people in between can agree on one thing. Missouri government, at this given moment, run by Republicans, can get massive things done very, very quickly. They can do it. It's interesting how often they don't, however. And they tell us all the reasons why it can't be done. Well, you see, when you get frustrated with us because we don't understand the process, because we don't understand all of the obstacles that go through, that is because you have demonstrated to us that you can get things done quickly, and big things at that. So that's on you. You know, it's like the kid that sloughs off at school and is lazy, and the parents are hard on me, like, why are you always on? It's like, because we know we have seen you before when you put your effort into something. When you study, we've seen you ace tests, so we know you have the ability to do it. That was your big downfall, showing us that you could do it. So when you're coming home with D's and C's and all these excuses, and you're like, well, I don't know how to study. No, we've seen you do it. You have shown us. And I'm sure many of these same lawmakers would be like, well, but you see, you don't understand. This is different because this. Well, because. There's always a because, and there is always a because. But I think that because oftentimes it's about priorities. Anyhow, some of what the negotiations were coming up here in just a couple of moments. We got news right now.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see areas of fog before 9 a.m., otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 78. Tonight mostly cloudy with a low around 66. For your Friday, showers and thunderstorms throughout the day with a high near 78. And looking ahead to Saturday, scattered showers throughout the day with a high near 80.
I want a great homeloan.com. If you have home loan needs, any questions about home loan needs, maybe you're a first home-time buyer or you're not. You've never bought a home because you think, man, this system's rigged because I got enough income in order to pay rent. So I could make a monthly mortgage payment, but I can't get to that point because I got to pay a huge chunk, like 20% up front. And so because I don't have that, I can't get that far ahead, then I'm stuck paying someone else's mortgage by way of rent. You're blocking yourselves into a situation that is unnecessary. And Anthony Carricker last week or the week before talked to us about this, that there are plenty of programs, and this is what they'll help you with, particularly if you're a first-time home buyer, where you can have no money down. Now, everybody's situation's different. And the way Anthony talked, this wasn't one out of every 200, like this rare instance, the absolute perfect alignment of constellations are necessary. That's not the case. That if you are first-time home buyer and you don't have credit to where you can get a mortgage at all, that there's a very good chance they're going to be able to help you with that. So it's something that I recommend you reach out to them if it's something you've thought about, but you've thought, well, we just can't ever afford that huge chunk of money because, we're putting it towards rent. Don't let that limit you. Reach out to them, and all that contact info is at iwantagreathomeloan.com because you do. So just around 2:30 this morning, the Missouri Senate approved a sweeping incentives plan intended to keep the Kansas City Chiefs and Royals inside the state lines. This is considered the largest hurdle to the effort. It's expected because of previous votes on the House of Representatives side, the Assembly over there, House side. It'll pass. It'll go to Kehoe's desk, and so this is going to happen. If it is signed into law, it would allow the state to offer incentives to pay for up to 50% of new or improved stadiums for the teams. This is coming about because the Royals and the Chiefs are like, hey, Kansas is offering us a really great program that could pay for up to 70% of new stadiums, and so this is the deal that Missouri is offering up. The vote signifies, of course, a major victory for Kehoe. This has been, one of his big incentives. One of his big efforts and priorities. The Kansas City Star notes that the stadium's bill faced an uphill battle in the Senate, with both Democrats and Republicans wanting their own priorities tacked on. Hours ticked by on Wednesday as senators negotiated behind closed doors and then fought on the Senate floor late into the night and into Thursday with no apparent end in sight. A group of hard-right Republicans, called the Freedom Caucus, promised to derail the bill if they did not get tax cuts. Democrats, for their part, wanted more money to go towards the tornado recovery efforts. After hours of closed-door negotiations, Kehoe, which the Kansas City Star notes is a former car salesman, I guess they're trying to give context, like, oh, he's a good deal maker or something. I don't know. But it just seems like
Kansas City Star, though.
It just seems funny. Like, I don't know. To me, it seems like they're trying to imply he's sleazy because of the stereotype that, whether fair or not, that used car salesmen, they're going to take advantage of you, and you get by, they're going back to talk to the manager, and then they come out to talk to you. So yeah, the exact wording is, after hours of closed door negotiations, Kehoe, a former car salesman, struck a deal. The Republican governor expanded his special session call early Wednesday evening to allow lawmakers, among other additions, to approve more money to help victims of the tornadoes and pass legislation that would let counties cap homeowners' property tax liabilities. Kehoe said in a statement announcing the decision, "We appreciate legislators working together to use this as an opportunity to show up for our community by acting swiftly to help those in crisis while also making smart decisions that secure opportunity for the future." The addition of the property tax language kicked off hours of back-and-forth political maneuvering. Only a small portion of the debate on the Senate floor centered on the stadium plan itself. Kehoe's decision to include the language came after Senator Joe Nicola, a Green Valley Republican, posted a video late Tuesday night, suggesting a proposed deal with the Republican governor was in the works to add property tax cuts to the stadium bill. The Star reported early Wednesday, quote, "If we can get some property tax relief, then I will be for this bill," she said in the video. Nicola's focus on property taxes came as tax assessments have long been a source of frustration in Jackson County specifically. Of course, it is for everyone in Missouri, but this notes Jackson County. After assessments jumped dramatically in recent years, the first-year senator attempted to add a tax relief bill aimed at capping tax liabilities in Jackson County and elsewhere as an amendment to Gregory's bill, but senators pulled the bill before it could be voted on. Nicola said on Wednesday while holding the floor late into the night to talk about property tax cuts, quote, "We've got this stadium bill to give the teams up to $1.5 billion, while I have constituents that are suffering under these horrendous property taxes." Nicola's amendment failed largely due to concerns about how it would affect local schools and government. So, just the appearance of all of this. The leading effort here is to give $1.5 billion to these two major teams, which, by the way, just to go see a game, you don't think about how much it costs the average citizen anyhow. And so you have what in context seems so small, but it's just us peons, right, when it comes to property taxes. Now, the push here, that this is what's number one priority, making sure that the Chiefs and the Royals get these $1.5 billion tax incentives. Like, it's massive, huge. But then when it comes to just putting a cap on your property taxes, I don't know. Government really needs that money. I don't know. When it comes down to the citizens versus government needing the money, oh boy, that's a rough one. I mean, it's just side by side. It is so disgusting. And that what in order to get any sort of movement, apparently, under Republicans in Missouri, in order to get any sort of movement for the average working person when it comes to relief on property taxes, we have to rely on the passions of the governor and party leadership to make sure that the Royals and Chiefs get whatever, they want. Like that's what we have to rely on. We have to rely on riding the coattails of what apparently is the real priority. Shortly after the amendment failed, senators approved a new version of the stadium bill that included similar cuts. However, the new version required only certain counties represented by Republican senators, which excluded Jackson and Clay counties, to allow local residents to vote on some form of property tax-related ballot measures by 2026. So, and let me tell you, we've got to take a break, but I want to explain why that's a screw job, in my opinion, which is oftentimes pretty on point. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. Okay. We got happy hour coming up tomorrow, 4 to 6. That is at Retro Metro. Come by, hang out with us. It's going to be a good time. Traffic update. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see areas of fog before 9 a.m., otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 78. Tonight mostly cloudy with a low around 66. For your Friday, showers and thunderstorms throughout the day with a high near 78. And looking ahead to Saturday, scattered showers throughout the day with a high near 80.
Tomorrow morning, doing the Friday Road Show, of course, Scramblers. That is sponsored by Shirley's Heating and Air. And then we do have ticket registration for an upcoming concert at Black Oak Amphitheater in Lampe. And it is Crowder, which is a Christian artist. And so it's one of those artists I suspect some of you are not familiar with, while others are like, oh, very familiar. Yeah, that's awesome. And are you familiar?
Yeah.
Okay. I was not.
Well, it's gonna. When for those who
I'm not a huge music person. I mean, I'm one of those people that I have just very few, and I listen to that, and then so
I'm like that too.
I'm not one of those people that has a wide breadth of knowledge when it comes to music.
I'm like that. I found who I like, and I don't really expand outward. But for those who are interested, that concert is going to be Sunday, June 22nd, and the showtime will be at 7 p.m. So we will have those tickets, tomorrow morning?
Yes, tomorrow morning. For you come by, register at Scramblers.
Yep. And that's that.
If you were to ask me, this is how out of the loop that I am when it comes to Christian artists. Just because, again, I'm not one that really explores music so much. If you were to ask me to name a Christian artist, I would say Carmen. Do you even know Carmen?
No.
That was from like the 90s, maybe even 80s and the 90s. Carmen, I don't even know if Carmen's still alive, but he was a real big, and it was during Christian music wasn't as big then. And then Stanley. Now, Stanley.
Also don't know.
Well, I think probably no one does. I just remember when I went to, it was a church camp. I'd say it was my maybe 7th grade, when I was in 7th grade, somewhere around there, and it was called Circle C, which the C was for Christ. And I don't even remember where the church camp was, because I had only gone to that particular church camp one year. And one night there was a Christian group that came there to perform named Stanley, and I think it was 2 girls and 2 guys or something. And I remember telling them, "Oh, my granddad's name's Stanley." And I don't know why I remember that. It wasn't as if afterwards I followed them or bought their CD or anything. And maybe it was just because of that conversation with the one gal and who was with the group and telling her my granddad's name was Stanley. And I don't know.
Well, Skillet, they're a Christian band.
I don't know.
Oh, Nick. What about Casting Crowns?
I've heard of them because of
Okay, good,
you.
because that is some of your bumper music.
Yeah, I think that's because of you. That's how I've heard of them. Okay, now back to this stadium issue. It was around 2:30 this morning that in the Senate they passed this clear priority. You could tell by the expedited fashion in which this massive undertaking took place so quickly. Senate passed the bill, vote 19-13. Happened more than 16 hours after the chamber was scheduled to debate it. 16 hours. How fast? Some of these, again, not to belabor a point, things that were told are priorities for the Republican Party year after year after year. 16 hours. If signed into law, it would allow the Missouri to offer incentives to pay for up to 50% of new or improved stadiums for the Chiefs and the Royals. And this has come about because Kansas has offered up incentives, and then the Chiefs and the Royals are like, I don't know, maybe we'll go over there. And then you've got some Missouri lawmakers that have made it a priority to give them financial incentive to stay here. Now, I noted some time ago that in terms of the temperature of this, I did not believe that there was any sort of groundswell of support amongst people in the general public. Now, when I've said that, I've had some people say, well, there are people that are definitely supportive of this. But what I mean is that this isn't something that came up organically. This isn't something that's being addressed because lawmakers' phones were ringing off the hook from their constituents saying, you had better come up with some tax incentives in order to keep these teams here. I think also at the same time, there has been sort of a shoulder shrug as to whether, or let me put it this way, the depth of, or the breadth of passion to not do tax incentives also does not seem to exist to any great degree, because lawmakers are clearly, with the exception of few Republicans, some Democrats, but the majority here supports doing something along these lines. And what has occurred is you did have some Republicans in the Senate that were like, at the very least, I mean, if we're going to give all these tax benefits to these two teams, maybe, just maybe, we could throw just a little something, just tiny little something to taxpayers. You remember those people? Remember those guys and gals? During the election, you go to their houses and you go door to door and you're asking them for donations and you're showing up at their different events, specifically Lincoln Days, of course, if it's a primary. And oh, yeah, and you're telling them how you're going to be their governor. You're telling them how you're going to be their senator. You're telling them how that you're tired of the little guy not getting heard from. And so you remember them? Maybe, just maybe, we could throw something to them. So initially, you had Senator Joe Nicola, Grain Valley Republican, that was looking for some property relief, and her amendment, property tax relief amendment, failed. Due to what concerns? What concerns do they have? Yeah, but the poor governments that get those taxes, the local governments and the schools, see, again, it's priorities. You notice, like in the hierarchy of priorities, it's just you and I are the average schmuck. The average guy and gal that's just trying to make it, maybe buy a house, specifically when it comes to property taxes, buy a house so you can have some equity, maybe actually pay it off one day so that you can have a little bit of breathing room, and of course, just owning it, you get punished. And then every couple of years, the government comes along like, guess what? We're going to take more from you. Oh, but we're not raising your taxes. Don't confuse this for raising taxes. I mean, we really do get treated like schmucks. There have been people that have been pushing for income tax cuts, pushing for like significant, real income tax cuts, not 0.1%. As long as the government gets its money first, then you get yours. I mean, we're always like, even the income tax in Missouri cut that got passed some time ago, it was dependent on the government they were the number one priority in that equation. Whatever the cut was, it was like, well, you get 0.1% of a cut only if revenue continues at some certain level or so. The formula was dependent on government number one priority. Then, as long as that's satisfied, you can have your tax cut. And here you've got some freedom car, at least, these more conservative Republicans that are trying to use the coattails of the clear priority of NFL and MLB, Royals and Chiefs here, in order just to give us something. And thank goodness for those lawmakers, because if it weren't for them, I mean, it's like, well, we've got nothing. I just feel like we're the dirty paupers. We're standing there as the opulent, wealthy king and court walk through, and they just toss us little shillings, and we all, oh, thank you so much. That's how we get treated. In a red state. So the new version of the stadium bill requires only certain counties represented by Republican senators. So apparently Democrats, the tax cut, property tax cut thing, we don't care about that. And that's how it seems to me. They're like, whatever. So the new version requires only certain counties represented by Republican senators to allow local residents to vote on some form of property tax-related ballot measure in 2026. So that means, of course, this isn't in any way, shape, or form a guarantee on potential tax relief for property owners, but it allows, under certain conditions, for local residents to vote on it. Now, let me tell you why it is that this is considered acceptable. Now, remember, the reason that some of the lawmakers were opposed to just saying, yeah, we're going to give some relief here to property tax. And it didn't even sound like a property tax cut. It just sounded like capping it, telling government, okay, we're going to cap it so you can't continue to jack it up on people. And they're like, no. Why did they say no? Local governments. Again, you're the last priority. Government's the first. Got to make sure government gets their money. So why then would it be okay to allow local residents to vote on some form of property tax? Here's why. Because anytime you have any sort of petition, initiative, a vote for a capping or a cut on property taxes, the government runs around scaring the hell out of people, telling them we're going to have to cut police. If you vote yes on this, we're going to cut police, we're going to cut fire. This means that if you call 911, the average response time is going to be cut. It's going to double. Your lives are going to be in danger. They start telling you all, the only things that they can manage to find to cut if there is a decreased amount of revenue are the things that are most important to you. It's amazing how that works. And here's the kicker. Increasingly, sadly, we are seeing multi-family facilities being built, apartments, in so many of these communities, which means what? People who are not paying property taxes directly anyhow. Now, of course, it's built into their rent, but they don't see it that way. So their only impact is, and those people vote. And that is essentially a built-in no vote for cutting property taxes, because cutting property taxes doesn't benefit them, but the message they receive is that if they do get cut, which doesn't benefit them, they are going to be harmed because of all these services that will have to be cut. So there's no upside to voting for a property tax cut. None. No upside for them. It would be interesting to see a study done or some sort of polling, people who do not have like property, like a home, that just pay rent, and so they don't see themselves as having to pay those property taxes. What percentage of them vote against cutting property taxes? I imagine it's got to be 90% or higher. Because again, they don't benefit from it, but they hear all the scary stories about all of the services they're going to lose. Going to shut down this center over here. This service is going to go away over there. It's all going to be chaos and awful. And so it greatly diminishes the likelihood of actually getting any meaningful property tax cuts at all. It becomes largely symbolic. Like I said, I don't blame the Republican senators that ended up securing this, because clearly they're up against the Republican establishment that was more concerned about local governments being a priority over you in terms of your money. And so I imagine they did everything that they could. You know, the funny thing about all of this, to me, it isn't even so much that in all and this is all likelihood going to pass. Now, final approval is not certain. It goes to the House, but just hours after Kehoe first unveiled the plan during regular session last month, the House had overwhelmingly approved it, 108-40. So this is expected to easily pass the House, and then Kehoe's going to sign it. To me, the part of this that just rubs me isn't even so much that it is happening, but just what it shows in terms of priorities. And how in hours, if the current Republican Party that is running this state really sees something as a priority, they can get it done. And I want everyone to remember this. I want everyone to remember this whenever they get told by the Republican establishment, and we're looking for those, like the income tax elimination that Kehoe campaigned on, and we're told, well, you got to understand, it's not that easy. We got this over here and that over there. Well, why within 16 hours could you pass these incentives for the Chiefs and the Royals? How were you able to pull off that trick? And trust me, there are a lot of Republican lawmakers that are right here with us in this frustration, because they are the ones who do try to get that stuff done, but they get up against the obstacle of the people running the Republican Party. So what we're observing here isn't a reflection of every Republican lawmaker. It is a reflection of the people running the Republican Party in Missouri. And let's not forget, when we talk about passion and priorities, Kehoe traveled around the state really pushing for that gas tax increase, which, lucky us, this year, I believe, is the last year of the 5 years in a row of tax increases at the pump. What a perfect time, actually, for this tax incentive to get pushed through by Governor Kehoe in the exact same year that is the last year you and I, as average citizens, will be paying that 5 consecutive year increase at the pump in increased taxes. I mean, it's just the symbolism of that, isn't it sweet? Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Pinnaker Honda. Now talk about some good deals and good people. Family-owned Pinnaker Honda. One thing, every new car purchase, enjoy free gas all summer on Pinnaker Honda. Yes, indeed. If you are an electric vehicle person, that's your go-to, or maybe you've even just thought about them. The fully electric Honda Prologue, 0.99% financing available now. Also, certified pre-owned Hondas, 0.99%. That's certified pre-owned. When it comes to the new Honda Accord, which, by the way, the hybrid, 51 miles per gallon. Hybrid, to me, has always just been the no-brainer way to go if you're looking for getting fuel efficiency. 51 miles per gallon, 2.49% financing. They have all sorts of other incredible financing deals as well. And, hey, graduation time. For a lot of people, what better gift to give the new college grad than a Honda, a very reliable vehicle with, again, incredible gas mileage. And Pinnaker Honda would love to offer $500 towards the purchase of a Honda for college grads. It's just a few things of what they have. Pinnaker family, Pinnaker Honda, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. I want to hit a couple of your text messages here regarding the Chiefs and Royals incentives that appear to be headed to the governor's desk. Eventually, it did around 2:30 this morning pass in the Senate. We've got to keep Chiefs and Royals in Missouri because of all the tax revenue they bring for the state, income tax, property tax, sales tax. It should have come to a vote so I could have some input at the ballot box. It did actually in Jackson County, not this exact formula, but this is something that the people of Jackson County voted on, and I think it was 58% said no. We do not want to be subsidizing this. One could argue if the people of Jackson County said no, given that they arguably have a greater financial interest than the rest of the people in Missouri do, then though you can't say for sure, arguably if you were to see, Missouri on a whole, probably would not be something that would have passed. And I must point out that the thing we're not hearing is that when taxpayers were asked if they wanted to subsidize incentives, they said no. Why are we trying to overturn the will of the people? It's funny how you only hear that during certain issues, but not during others. Missouri state government is everything wrong with state government. Drain the Missouri swamp, replace these people with MAGA candidates, and another. Since they didn't give us any recent cuts, they could have at least given us a soundbite of Kehoe shouting, and remember, folks, our prices are crazy. That's a reference to him being a car salesman in the past. Traffic update, I'm Nick Reed. All right, let me get to a few other of your text messages on this. Give me a moment as I move things around. Taxation without representation on unrealized gains. This is applied to Missouri working people today. Another Nick or wait, I hate even listening to you talk about the stadium issue. Why are people who couldn't care less about these teams being forced to pay for them? Talk about special interest, like being forced to pay for abortions. I mean, maybe kind of, but not exactly. But I understand the point. Nick, what can we do? We are taxed and taxed to death. I just got a notice that my appraised value of my house is going up, so my taxes are going up again. We pay taxes every year on our vehicles, even though I paid taxes on it when I bought it. It's just disgusting, and there's no relief in sight. Nothing ever gets done. Nothing ever gets changed. We actually had a guy run for governor this year that wanted to get rid of personal property taxes, and that he acted like such an idiot. There was no way he was going to ever get elected. Your voice is strong. Maybe you can help us get a movement started. Well, I've been doing this for a while, and I don't really know that it's made much of a difference in terms of policy. So, as much as I'd like to think that I can make that big of a difference, I mean, this is this is a primary problem, and by primary problem, I mean in Missouri. Missouri Republican voters, the majority of people that go out to vote in Missouri primaries, as much as you may think that like virtually all those people must listen to stations like this, right? No, they don't. They're voters and they're Republicans, and so it's voting time and they go out and vote, but they're not really in the loop. They're not following what's going on. And so whomever the incumbent Republican is, if that Republican incumbent even gets a challenger, the name recognition of the Republican that's in there already has, people just feel comfortable with what they know. They've been receiving flyers and seeing commercials about how conservative this person is because that's what their campaign says. And the challenger is always, they have an uphill advantage because of a lot of it, frankly, is campaign finance laws that make it virtually impossible for challengers to raise meaningful dollars. And so the system is against, and the people's lack of knowledge about what so many of these lawmakers are doing, it works in the favor of the real problem Republicans that block real, true, meaningful, positive changes for the state. That prevents us from being a state like Florida or Texas, and instead makes us this mediocre middle at best in which there's really nothing to write home about. I think that there are central committees, people that are actual real conservatives getting on those central committees can make differences. There are a lot of things that can be done. But, when you have somebody like Lincoln Huff, who's pretty much as left-wing as possible, that can run, and a conservative challenger comes along and he can still win, that demonstrates a problem, though he did not win by nearly as much as he probably could have. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. I had mentioned we were in the last hour. I don't even know how I got. Oh, I know how. Anyway, about Christian artists and Christian music, and I'm not a guy that has a real vast knowledge of music. I'm one of these. I like what I like, and I don't really do much exploring. So tomorrow morning we are having registration for tickets to see Crowder live in June at the Black Oak Amphitheater. So if you want to come by and register while we're broadcasting live at Scramblers, and I'd said, yeah, I'm not familiar. I know a lot of you are with the music of Crowder, but and how I like Carmen is. If you had asked me name one Christian music artist, it would have been Carmen. I said, I don't even know if he's still alive. Somebody had said he died about 4 years ago. Somebody's like, what about Amy Grant? And maybe I'm totally wrong on this, but for whatever reason, I just thought of Amy Grant. I didn't think of her as just a Christian artist because I believe she seemed to sort of transcend outside of that, though she was definitely, I guess Christian based. But I don't even feel like I can give an accurate evaluation or description because she, definitely the name. And if I heard some song, I think my parents had an Amy Grant tape. It seemed like when I was a kid driving around that would get played sometimes. I could be wrong. I think it was a Christmas tape, actually, now that I think about it. So, but Amy Grant, definitely. A number of you had texted in other Christian artists, of which I had never heard of. So, but that's to my point that I was making earlier. We have Author of the Week coming up here in just a couple of moments. I did want to mention mention to you that Trump's latest approval ratings have him higher at this point in his presidency than Bush or Obama were at this point in theirs. You just got to love this stuff. You wouldn't know it, would you? I mean, you listen to the media or some of the hysterical people on the left on social media that every day all they do is try to find out what it is that they can learn that Trump did that's going to make them miserable so that they can in turn share that misery with others. They like to spread it like a disease. You would think, well, Trump, I mean, he must be the single most unpopular president by triple digits. No. Real Clear Politics, Tom Bevan posting on X that, quote, as of 2 days ago, Trump's approval rating in the Real Clear Politics average is 47.5%, which is higher than Obama and Bush's at this point in their second terms. The outlet noted that at the same time in Obama's presidency, his job approval rating was at 47.1, and Bush was at 45.9, both below Trump's. You think about just even when you know how biased that and the media acting as a propaganda wing of the Democrat Party, and you know all of that, it is still almost difficult to believe that when it came to polling people, we're not talking about right-wing outlets. I mean, this is a Real Clear Politics rolling average. That Obama was less popular than Trump. Now, it's the difference between 47.5% and 47.1%. It's probably margin of error. If not, it's just right outside of it. So, I mean, it's very, very close. But given the way that even today, Obama just scandal-free administration, and he was just so wonderful, although a lot of really harmed his reputation during this last election. But outside of that, I mean, Obama is just the unquestionable, you talk to historians. What do historians say? Trump is by far the worst president we've ever had. And Obama, of course, he's up there as one of the most transformative, amazing presidents ever. And you would think that Trump clearly has been a disaster and people are so unhappy. Yet average Americans out there, happier with Trump than they were with Biden or Obama at this point in his administration, and Bush as well, which isn't as difficult to believe. Springfield's Talk 104.1 Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Coming up now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see areas of fog before 9 a.m., otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 78. Tonight mostly cloudy with a low around 66. For your Friday, showers and thunderstorms throughout the day with a high near 78. And looking at the Saturday, scattered showers throughout the day with a high near 80.
Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed, and it's Thursday, which means it is Author of the Week time, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Our author, Leslie Corbley, attorney and author of Progressive Prejudice, Exposing and Devouring Mother. And this, generally speaking, when we do Author of the Week, it's around publishing time. And this book, actually, we've got a few months until it does get published. But a lot of the issues that are going to be in the book that you'll read touch on what we're in today in terms of Pride Month and so forth. So I thought the timing of it would be great to go ahead and do the interview early. And so I thank you, Leslie, for being with us this morning. And just want to start off asking, what was the motivation that prompted you to write on this particular subject matter?
Sure. So I think that there's a broad problem in American society and culture where we're able to talk about the harms that come from certain groups, right? White, male, Christian, that's kind of the obvious one. And we really struggle to talk about the ways in which prejudice is actually presented in all of humanity, right? So kind of your flavor of prejudice will change based on your underlying philosophical assumptions, but this idea that some groups are oppressed and that they cannot engage in oppressive or prejudicial behavior is simply not true. So if you want to talk about equality, you need to not only talk about equality of across the lines of what's good for humanity, right? Like good traits that people have or positive aspects of the human experience, but you also have to talk about equality of that goes on to negative traits, right? That talks about the ways in which people are equally have an equal propensity to engage in oppressive behavior against outgroups, or to cause harm, or to engage in predation or evil behavior.
Well, and we go into what I call, or we're in it now, Pride Month. I call it Narcissism Month. I've seen Destabilize America Month. How does this whole approach and the way it is that culturally we have this recognition of pride fit into all of this?
It's interesting. I was talking about this the other day in a different interview, and I think that there's a tendency right now towards having pride in the tendency on the left wing spectrum is to have pride in the traits that you believe caused you oppression, right? So you see this with Pride Month, you see it with other what the left would call historically marginalized groups, right? You have African American History Month, you have Women's History Month. I mean, you increasingly have all of these different times dedicated to celebrating what the left perceives as the traits that cause certain individuals to be marginalized by society, which is actually different than, taking pride in something that's universal to the human experience, right? Like your ability to cultivate virtue or your ability to engage in, to overcome hardship, right? Which I think is part of it. That's connected maybe to their idea of marginalization. But I think that it, in my view, the way it's currently operating socially encourages individuals to adopt sort of this victim mentality and to say, I'm taking pride in this because it caused me marginalization, without stopping to think, like, is it something that we should take pride in, first of all? And then second of all, to what extent are we kind of creating more victimization by focusing in on only the negative aspect of what it historically meant to be, say, gay or African American or a woman, right? I mean, these aren't fixed aspects of culture, right? In certain areas of culture right now, it's quite beneficial to be a member of the LGBTQ population or to be a woman or to have a skin tone that's not white. So these aren't fixed aspects of American culture that exist in the same way in every state of the union.
Well, and it seems to me, I'd be interested to get your thoughts on this and the cause behind it. It's a shifting hierarchy, in my opinion. And I remember there was a period of time, it was around, I don't know, Mitt Romney running for president, and everything, like the top of the hierarchy was female. I remember that women were brought, college girls, I think, would testify before Congress about the need to have freely available feminine products to college students. And I mean, it was all about women, women, women. But now, you look at this month in particular, the big T in the LGBT, and the idea that they are so oppressed, yet I see almost weekly stories about girls that are losing out scholarships, losing out first place. In Oregon, for example, there's a couple of girls that lost first and second place because a guy was allowed to run as a girl, got first place, and because they wouldn't stand on the podium, they were told, get out of the picture, get out of here. And so it seems as if females have really fallen down the hierarchy of the left somehow. And it's just such a weird thing. And I don't even know how they choose, like when and where to shift this hierarchy of who's important, who's a victim, and who's an oppressor.
I think some of it, I think you're right that it's kind of hard to pin down because it's always changing, right? And that's one of the, I think, the issues with progressives, and one of the aspects in which they're really prejudicial, right, is they don't have, like a religious structure, like a canon that says here is what right and wrong is, and it doesn't change, right? They're constantly, so their prejudices are part of their prejudicial way of thinking is that everything's always in flux, which means you can both try to claim that women have been oppressed and we need to really value them and value what's distinct about being a woman, while also claiming that anyone can be a woman. They don't have an internal structure because of how fluid their thought is that can deal with some of these cognitive dissonances well, because they tend to go along with whatever the new philosophical trend is. So it almost operates more like an open canon system. Like certain religions, I know Mormonism, for example, has an open canon system where I believe the prophets things can change, is my understanding. I'm not LDS, so I'm not don't hold me to that.
Right.
But that the left operates more on that side of, the canon's open, and whatever these sort of philosophical, I joke that professors now are more like prophets, kind of tell them is right and wrong. They go towards that viewpoint, even if it creates a massive amount of cognitive dissonance based on something they said prior, right? So you don't have a lot of stability within the progressive
It's almost like moment to moment.
culture. Yes,
Yeah.
it's very fluid, and you have certain things that are really, again, they'll talk about women's rights and the woman's right to choose, and that was pretty much the crux of Harris's campaign, and yet they can't define woman. So
Yeah.
you get these really weird results as they keep trying to morph and shape shift because their ideology has very little stability.
We're talking with our author of the week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone, Leslie Corbley. The book, A Progressive Prejudice Exposing the Devouring Mother. What's devouring mother? What is that?
Sure. So the devouring mother is the archetype of female predation, right? So we talk a lot about toxic masculinity in society, and I think we really struggle to talk about the unique ways in which women can engage in predation. So obviously, men have a physical advantage over women, and they don't bear children. So it kind of stands to reason that the archetype of female predation has traditionally involved the maternal aspect, because for the vast majority of human history, women couldn't really avoid motherhood unless they were infertile or there was some kind of a disorder involved. And so, yeah, essentially what the devouring mother does is she perverts caretaking, right? So actual caretaking means you operate in someone else's best interest, you look out for them. And a perversion of that would be you take caretaking, and rather than actually caring for the individual that you have guardianship over, you're instead exerting control over them, right? So you are the one, the caretaker is actually the primary beneficiary of their quote unquote care that they're providing to the person that is dependent upon them, right? So it's kind of the weaponization of dependency. It's where you get the idea of infantilization, right? Kind of not allowing the individual to grow up or to develop appropriately. And I would argue that there's quite a bit of this in culture, and it kind of goes unnoticed because it's so taboo to talk about. And I think it's certainly present on the left side of the aisle. That's where you get a lot of this idea of, for example, the Democratic Party messages heavily that they care about their constituents. Yet at the end of the day, a lot of that messaging that we care about you is actually about control. Like, we're going to control these certain outcomes and it will keep us in power, right? That's kind of the same structure that you would see with a devouring mother who says she cares for her children and in fact uses her caretaking authority to engage in control and manipulation.
It seems to me that the left, and you use the term fluid, and there's no real constant truth there. And there are certain constant truths, whether they want to acknowledge them or not. I think a lot of them, they are inherent in men and they're inherent in women. And I'm just interested in your thoughts on, this presentation that the left had long given, that everything Trump was or is was just the antithesis to anything that was beneficial to women. And it was, I think, a successful narrative to the degree that even a lot of Republicans were getting very worried about the suburban housewife, and just this grave concern that 80% of women were going to vote against Donald Trump, and he's so toxic. And listen to the way he talks about women and so forth. Yet, other than the quote college educated women, that shift did not occur at all. So your thoughts on that relationship between, Trump and the way that women actually behaved when it came to voting versus the way that we were all told that women were going to in groves flee the Trump campaign, if you will, or election rather.
Sure. I think the left is struggling with this shift in perception in media. And what I mean by that is that for so long, the left could really effectively control the narrative of how public figures, particularly in politics, were viewed, right? They controlled education, media, pretty much all stripes, journalism, Hollywood, right? Major cultural gatekeeping that they were able to sort of, again, control the narrative. And I think that that's falling apart in the age of, as technology rapidly advances and as you have alternate media sources and Elon Musk bought Twitter, you don't really have the same media landscape that is so favorable to them. And I think that's really important because I think that the extent to which women vote is not necessarily purely a rhetorical matter, right? So I think that what the left thought was, oh man, look at some of these things he says. They're terrible from a PR standpoint. Women won't want to hear that. They'll vote against him. But, women are also dealing with a lot of the issues that he talks about in his campaign. They're dealing with that on the front end as well. They may overlook certain words or not care about that, right? And then, of course, there's the reality that people interpret the things President Trump says for good or for bad, whether one agrees with them or not, or thinks that they're particularly appropriate or not, they're going to interpret them differently. So there are going to be different viewpoints on whether what he's saying is malicious, whether he's actually the kind of demon he's presented in the media, whether he's more complicated. And frankly, again, there's going to be the trade-offs that go off in the voter's mind of, okay, I care about certain policy matters more maybe than what he says, right? I mean, these women aren't necessarily committing to living with Donald Trump in their house.
Right.
They may or may not necessarily care a whole lot about, at the end of the day, about what he says. They may care a lot more about what he does. And I think the left tends to care more about how someone presents themselves. They care more about perception than those on the right. And I think those on the right tend to care more about action. I think, again, these are general trends. That doesn't hold true of everyone. But I think those on the right tend to care less about whether something's presented crassly, for example, and more about the actual actions that are occurring, whereas those on the left are very sensitive to the words people say and the way they frame things so as to not cause offense. And so that's just a difference, I think. And a lot of women, frankly, don't have the same ideological the same emotional attachment to ideology that those who you mentioned, like, are college educated, have. And so I just don't think they care. I think it depends on what motivates those women, and those who are really ideologically committed care a lot.
In other words, not every woman is exactly the same.
No.
What a crazy concept. Yes, they're actual human beings with diverse thoughts and beliefs and motivations. Leslie Corbley, our author of the week, Progressive Prejudice, Exposing the Devouring Mother. Just finally, what do you hope people take away from this book, and any other final thoughts?
Sure. I hope that they're able to have a better understanding of the ways in which prejudice is a part of the human experience. It's not a textbook thought process of, okay, certain people or groups are always oppressive and others are always oppressed, right? Instead, our ability to engage in both good and evil is just, it's equal across all domains, right? So every group has its prejudicial thoughts and ways of behaving, and every group has its beneficial aspects as well. And so I think that it's really important to understand equality from both vantage points. It's not just about rights, it's about rights and responsibilities.
Leslie Corbley, again, author of the week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. The book Progressive Prejudice, Exposing the Devouring Mother. For Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed.
This is your home for the Retro Metro Lunch Bunch. Sign up to win at KSGF.com.
KSGF.com, a couple things for you to register for if you would like to, if you so choose one. An office or work pizza party, if you will, from Godfather's Pizza. Get signed up for that. Also, there is Father's Day golf giveaway, and you can win a round of golf for you or your dad and for 3 of his or your friends at the Big Cedar golf courses, and that is as easy as getting signed up. So just go over to ksgf.com. And that is where you will do that. A reminder also, tomorrow as we broadcast live, Friday Road Show from Scramblers, sponsored by Shirley's Heating and Air. We will have registration for you to win tickets, a pair of tickets, to see Crowder live at the Black Oak Amphitheater in Lampe. So just come by and get signed up for those tickets. And I don't know how many pair we'll give away, but we'll give away more than one pair. Maybe it'll depend on how many people sign up for it. That tomorrow morning at Scrambler, 6A to 9A. Oh, and then we do have happy hour. That is going to be at Retro Metro. Anytime we have retro or happy hour, that is where we have it. Great place to hang out, have some drinks, have some food. And we would love for you to just swing by, join us, say hey, and help kick off the weekend at Retro Metro for happy hour 4 to 6 tomorrow.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see areas of fog before 9 a.m., otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 78. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 66. For your Friday, showers and thunderstorms throughout the day with a high near 78. And looking ahead to Saturday, scattered showers throughout the day with a high near 80.
Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Kayla says that working with Emily was an absolute pleasure from start to finish. We've had the opportunity to both buy and sell properties with House Theory's help, and every experience exceeded our expectations. The deep knowledge of the market, strategic insight, keen eye for value truly made a difference every step of the way. Beyond that expertise, they were a genuine delight to work with, professional, responsive, always looking out for our best interest, and that is consistently what you get with Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. And if you are thinking about putting your house on the market before you make any sort of alterations, changes, upgrades, get with her first, check with her first. And some of the things that once upon a time were no-brainers, like, well, this carpet's outdated, we got to go ahead and update that. You may be wasting your money. Those preferences, the things that move houses, the things that people are wanting to kind of do on their own in terms of upgrades, all of that changes over time, and this is what Emily does every day. So she knows what the temperature is and what is the best thing to do and not to do. and that's what she's going to help you with. So don't even change a doorknob if you're thinking about putting the house on the market until you first reach out to Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Corinne Jean-Pierre is writing a book. You excited about this book? Oh, Corinne, KJP.
Well, I wonder if she's going to
Right
lie
about-
to us like she has for the last 4 years.
I wonder if the title is going to be Now I'm Not Lying.
That'd be a good title.
Yeah. Now I'm Not Lying. That
Or
could be the title.
Maybe it could be Let Me Check My Binder.
Yeah.
The binder files.
That's what the
Ooh.
book cover should look like. It should just be a binder.
I like that.
A big binder. And then have the pages out of order. That way when you're reading it, you have to flip around a lot, just like she did
Yes,
during
I
the
like
press
that.
conferences. So you sort of get a feel what it was like to be lost and confused when you're trying to get information. I mean, are you kidding me? These people have no shame, no embarrassment. Now, she's announced that she's leaving the Democrat Party. Okay, whatever. She's going to be an independent. How virtuous. Releasing a book all about how much of a fair-minded independent she is, willing to speak the truth in any situation, encouraging Americans to think outside the party lines.
Please.
I know these people. It's just all so fake. I keep trying to think of something to compare it to, but they're just so extreme in their fakeness that I think that they are the thing that you would make comparisons to. If you're trying to, there's somebody that's just so fake. It's just so insultingly fake and cringy. And you're like, like Corinne Jean-Pierre, or, they are the ones, these Democrats and the Jake Tappers and these people that are coming out. And I think part of it is there's no sense of embarrassment.
It's because they're narcissists.
Yeah. I mean, it is. And I think part of it also is that they are so used to, this is their environment in which everyone knows that, for the most part, most of these people lie. Now, I'm not one of these people that's, I know it's easy to say all politicians lie. I don't believe that to be true. And some of this is because I, personally know and sometimes have really followed people who have, to me, proven that they are trustworthy. I think that they have earned the trust. So I just don't believe that every single one of them is dishonest and a liar. I happen to believe virtually anyone and everyone surrounding Joe Biden, and frankly, that would be anyone in the Democrat Party that ever vouched for his cognitive abilities. They are all liars, and liars about very serious things for a very serious, comprehensive attempt to cover something up. And some people may say, well, that's painting with a broad brush. Well, it's a broad barn. I mean, they all did it. And Corinne Jean-Pierre is one of them. And I do believe that they're so comfortable. It's like part of their job is to lie, and they know people know they lie, and they know people know they lie. And that leads them to be detached from how normal Americans view this. And we're like, are you kidding? What? You are the spokesperson. You are the official spokesperson for all of the lies. That was your job every single day to come out and tell us, as she did, the overboard. I see the president every day. I see him with other world leaders when, and he runs circles around them. It would have been one thing to just try and downplay some of the obvious cognitive problems that Biden was having, and to try and find a middle ground where, you're kind of not really being exactly truthful, but you're not just brazenly lying at the same time. You try to, hey, listen, everyone, when they get to a certain age, sure, but up in the and sometimes he the words get jumbled and so forth, but what's going on upstairs, really, that's still there. And I understand why it is that when you see certain things, you understand, but you don't see the whole picture. Instead of that, she would come out and make the absurd statements about how he was just the sharpest of all the world leaders, and that, they would look to him for direction on complex issues that required mental gymnastics, and and to go so far as to claim that videos of him getting confused, wandering off stage, displaying clear cognitive issues, she went out and from the White House said that those were deep fakes, that was edited stuff, that those were videos that can't, don't believe your own eyes. She was one of the most extreme examples of complete and total dishonesty and cover-up of what was going on there in the White House. Now, that was her job. But I don't know how you then... I would at least understand, I don't know if respect is the right word, if she came out and was like, listen, yeah, I'm a liar. People lie in this industry. I've accepted that, and I've accepted that if I was going to take this position, I would have to lie, and I don't apologize for that. And here now, but now that I'm not in it anymore, I can tell you the truth. I'd be like, okay. At least she's admitting it, But I suspect what we're going to get is somehow this detachment from her participation in all of it, her facilitation of all of it, her promoting of all of it, her spreading of disinformation. In fact, the book claims that, this is incredible, the book claims that Karine Jean-Pierre highlights, quote, importance of dismantling the torrent of disinformation and misinformation that has been rampant in recent elections and provides passionate insight for moving forward. So she is going to provide us, the masses, lessons on the importance of dismantling disinformation and misinformation. Again, unless she's going to come from it, come at it from the angle that, hey, I should know. Like you see these people that go to prison for scamming people, and then when they get out, they write books about, hey, here's how I did it. I was a bad guy. And these are the things that you should watch out for. Now, if she takes that approach in the book, like, listen, this is what I did for however many years during the, couple, 2-3 years, however long it was after Psaki stepped down. And Karine Jean-Pierre comes at it from the perspective of, this was my job, was to lie to you. And so I'm going to kind of tell you, as the target of the lies, the things that you should watch out for. Okay. But I suspect that is not the direction that she's going to be coming at us with. I mean, she's going to be the good guy. She's going to be the virtuous one. And this cesspool that she was a grand participant in for all this time, she is going to portray to us that, she's above all of that. Okay. Did you know, evidently, according to 2 sources, she was angling to be on a co-host on The View?
Oh, she'd be perfect for it.
Yeah, this is a gig that she was looking to. This is from Politico. A New York-based publicist, Gilda Squire, worked informally with Jean-Pierre while she was in the White House and was on multiple occasions copied on official emails before staffers raised the issue. Another former official said, by the way, this is a separate scandal that's brewing, is that this Gilda Squire denied that, said it wasn't true. But then you have, from Axios, one of the authors of the Joe Biden book, along with Jake Tapper, releasing out emails showing that she's lying about it and calling her out on it, saying she's lying. she was, because so what was happening here, I know I'm kind of side noting this, but these people are just so unethical that they trip over themselves with their behavior. While she was still doing her job, she was CCing this publicist. So the implication here is that she knew she was going to write a book. And so while she was doing her official job, she was already feeding information to this publicist that she should not have been feeding her, in order to maybe get a book deal or to, curry favor with this individual, because this publicist she thought could help her. And in fact, she did end up getting on publications like Vogue and Women's Health, and ended up going on The View. And so there are a lot of ethical questions as to whether or not this was essentially a quid pro quo. She feeds this publicist, New York-based publicist, information she shouldn't have, and in exchange for it, she's basically laying the groundwork to line her own pockets, which what better administration to learn from than the one she was working for, with that approach. But Squire previously served as publicist director for HarperCollins and did PR for Penguin Putnam Publishing. Now, she denied that she was ever looped in on any of this stuff. But again, the reporter for Axios released the emails showing that she was on these emails, called her out as a liar, to which she responded, "How dare you come at me in that tone?" Like, how dare you? How dare you? So there's that battle going on, which frankly doesn't necessarily hurt the at least free marketing of Karine Jean-Pierre's book, because now it's being talked about. Back to the Politico piece. According to two of the former officials, Karine Jean-Pierre had been hoping for a post-White House job as a co-host on the show, following the template of her predecessor in the show being The View, that she was hoping to go. And it would be an absolute perfect place for her. And what an absolutely sad commentary that you have a show that is, frankly, an insult to women, and that any network would willingly, and as long as they have, put out a program that makes women look like complete idiots who shouldn't even be allowed to vote. I mean, if that is what they believe is an authentic representation of the average woman in this country, what an insult that is. And so the fact that Karine Jean-Pierre thought she'd fit in just perfectly there, I think tells us a lot about her. Jeez. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers.
Thank you. Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. Hot days are around the corner, and if your AC is just not up to par, I want to recommend Russell and his team over at Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. Now, I've used the Foreman team since I've moved out to my little farmhouse, and I finally upgraded my unit last week, and I can already tell a tremendous difference. And the Foreman team, they offer residential and commercial services for you, as well as indoor air quality testing for those who suffer with allergies. And they also have a 24/7 emergency service line because, most emergencies don't stick to that 8 to 5 business hours. So whether you need an AC tune-up to keep you cool this summer or it's finally time to do a major upgrade, Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air are the go-to guys. Now you can give them a call today and schedule that appointment, and you can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Speaking of Karine Jean-Pierre and this announcement that she is releasing a book, I imagine she is going to do the press tour thing. Has she not been paying attention to what has gone on with Jake Tapper? I mean, Jake Tapper, I think that the waters were a little rougher than he anticipated they would be in terms of the recognition that you were part of this you were part of this criminal gang, of sorts. I mean, and now you're writing as if you were somehow the one who's shown the light on it. Has she not been paying attention to that? Does she think she's going to escape any scrutiny? Now, she's black and a woman, so instinctually, the media will not come at her as, to the same degree that they did Jake Tapper being a white guy, even though he's a lefty. But I got to imagine that there's going to be some, these questions, when did you know? What did you know? Really? And if you're Jake Tapper, for all of his faults, he at least is equipped to engage in a conversation like that. It doesn't mean that he's going to have great answers or come out looking great, but we've seen Karine Jean-Pierre's work, and she is not good. Even with a binder and written up answers for her. So can you imagine her sitting in the hot seat answering questions as she's trying to promote her book that is lecturing us about disinformation? I imagine that she'll probably just go on The View, and maybe if they're smart, they will put her in places that just absolutely will not do anything other than try and raise her up and spend a lot of time focusing on what it was like to be the first black lesbian as a White House spokesperson and focus on all of that stuff. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Let's play some just great audio clips here as we round out the show this morning that just really highlight the level of intellect from Democrats. This is Chuck Schumer and his characterization of the current big, beautiful bill.
And we all know one thing. Donald Trump is just lying about the bill. Lying about the bill. Well, here's the "we are all going to die" act.
So that's where we are now. We're all going to die because of the the big, beautiful bill. We're all going to die. Oh, over on The View, one of those brilliant minds declared, without citing any evidence, that already the Doge cuts have killed over 300,000 people, most of them children. I kid you not. Totally unchallenged.
These people.
So Chuck Schumer stepped it up. Well, he's, I guess, carrying on here. We're going from, so far, 300,000 people have been killed to we are all going. He had that printed on a, it was sitting up on an easel on display. We are all going to die, Bill. This is audio for WCAX, Democrat Representative Becca Ballant from Vermont on the issue of illegal immigrants.
Labor, and of course, we have to come to a place in Congress where it is no longer a political issue, but we see it as an existential issue for the country. If we don't have avenues for people to come here legally to work or to build a home here, I'm going to be really crude right now. We're not going to have anybody around to wipe our asses.
Wow.
This is not an unheard of position from the left and their perspective on immigrants to this country. And her saying that we won't have anybody to wipe our asses. That's her quote. That's what they think. That is the value immigrants in the minds of the Democrats provide to this country. See you at Scramblers tomorrow. I'm